They thought she was just another middle-aged clerk, just a tired woman in government-issue khakis, worn sneakers, and a canvas bag with a busted zipper. They were wrong. It began on a scorched Wednesday morning in June. The West checkpoint at Falcon Ridge Air Logistics Center had always been a little too proud of itself. Reserved for flight crews, weapons convoys, and the kind of brass that made enlisted men stand straighter than usual. On this particular morning, that gate was rerouted for all base staff. A tech glitch in Building 9's badge reader had forced everyone through it, and that included her. She moved through the line like a shadow, silent, unbothered. No sunglasses, no water bottle, no complaints. Her badge read Karen Blake, GS-12, Logistics Analyst, civilian equivalent. No higher clearance, no anomalies. Clipboard Sergeant Fields barely looked at her as she stepped up. His mirrored shades scanned more for weakness than weapons. Her bag went onto the conveyor. She placed her palms flat on the inspection table, her expression unreadable. The scanner beeped once routine, but then came the hesitation. A young private, maybe 20, leaned forward, squinting at the screen. Something inside the bag didn't match the checklist. "Ma'am," he said, clearing his throat to sound more authoritative than he was, "do you have any metallic items or unauthorized electronics?" Karen didn't flinch. No prohibited electronics, just personal tools. He asked her to step aside. She complied without a word. Now, the eyes began to gather. First came Fields, sensing a chance to flex in front of his crew. Then came a slow circle of bored security techs with nothing better to do than watch an older woman get her bag dismantled like she was hiding a grenade. They started pulling things out one by one. A worn-out travel mug, a moleskin notebook with frayed edges, a small cedar token that smelled faintly of wood smoke, an oatmeal packet, a folded cotton t-shirt, a set of micro screwdrivers, all clattered into a plastic tray with the same sound shame makes when dropped in public. The private reached the last zipper. Karen's face stayed perfectly still, but her pulse flicked once. Out came a small leather case, plain, worn, silent. He opened it, and the world stopped. What shimmered beneath the fluorescent light was no ordinary insignia. Matte black, a falcon mid-dive, clutching a lightning bolt, subtle details, talons splitting like signal branches. Too discreet to catch a civilian's eye, but unmistakable to anyone whose clearance once scraped the stratosphere. Private Bradford blinked. Sergeant Fields did not. He stared at the emblem. His lips parted slightly. His jaw twitched. Then, like someone just snapped a bone in the room, he barked a sharp order. Nobody moves. The air inside the checkpoint thickened. Someone dropped a pen. Behind the scanner, a red phone rang twice and stopped a silent alarm. 2 MPs materialized as if summoned by ritual. Hands rested on holsters, eyes wide with questions they hadn't been trained to ask. Karen didn't move. She didn't need to. She simply raised her hands in calm compliance, but not before her fingers hovered, just briefly, over the ID card at her chest. She could swipe it. One motion, and the override would vaporize every assumption in the room. But she waited. Fields moved with care now. He motioned for the private to seal the bag but leave the emblem visible. He wanted command to see it. He wanted credit for a capture, as if he had any idea what or who he was trying to detain. Karen said nothing. She let the room fill with tension. Let them feel it in their teeth. It took less than 3 minutes for the unmarked SUV to screech to a halt outside the gate. 2 officers stepped out. Midnight blue uniforms. No rank insignia. No name tags. Only one patch. Air Combat Command. They entered like thunderclouds in human form. Field straightened. "Siruchthis is..." The taller officer raised a hand. "Sergeant Fields," he said with the authority of someone used to ending conversations. "Explain." Fields fumbled, gestured to the bag, to her, to the emblem. The officer's eyes landed on it, and something behind his face flinched, just a flicker. Then he looked directly at Karen, not at her badge, not at her credentials, at her. "Lieutenant Commander Blake," he said, not a question. "Why is a Red Falcon operator moving through this checkpoint unescorted?" The silence cracked like ice. Every head turned. "Red Falcon." The words detonated across the room. Karen finally spoke, her voice low, even, and terrifyingly calm. "Because, Colonel, this operator signed remission. I am a non-combatant logistics analyst. Paragraph 12. C. Authorizes independent base movement under standard clearance. The colonel's brow furrowed. Paragraph 12. C also states operators under remission must not carry identifiers. Care to explain why that pin is in your possession? Karen exhaled softly. Because I was advised to keep it, as a reminder. She didn't explain of what. She didn't need to. The colonel nodded slowly. Return her property. Log this as procedural error. Clear this checkpoint. Fields opened his mouth to protest until the colonel shut it with one look. Bradford's hands shook slightly as he repacked the bag. When he reached the emblem, he held it like it might explode. Karen took it without flinching, slid it back into the side pocket, zipped it shut. No apology was offered. None was expected. She walked away as the hallway behind her filled with murmurs. They had trashed her bag. But they had unearthed a ghost. And ghosts don't forget. Karen Blake didn't storm away from the checkpoint. She didn't glare, didn't mutter a word. She just walked steady, composed, her canvas bag slung back over her shoulder like it had never been touched. But inside that bag, nestled between a packet of oatmeal and a cedar token that once bought her 30 seconds at a hostage gate in Chad, the emblem pulsed with new weight. Not because it had changed, but because someone had noticed. By the time she reached Building 9, the Whisper had already arrived ahead of her. Eyes followed her in the hallway. Some stared with suspicion. Others with respect. Most didn't know what they had seen, just that something had shifted. Something old, something heavy. Her office was exactly where she left it. Pale green walls, a humming diffuser, a window facing a dumpster, and a chain-link fence bent by prairie wind, the kind of forgotten corner that let ghosts disappear. She sat. Logged in. Answered 3 logistics queries. Forwarded a shipping manifest. At noon, she poured hot coffee into dry oats and stirred with a plastic spoon. Nothing about her routine changed, but everything had. At 1,500 hours, a courier arrived. No base insignia, no spoken words, just a sealed grey envelope, handed off with the kind of silence reserved for funeral chapels or court-martials. Inside, a single card. Greystock, black ink. Red Falcon Recall Protocol. Effective, immediately. Remission suspended. Article 7. Report to Hangar 6, 1,900 hours. Signature, redacted. Karen stared at it, her thumb pressed lightly against the embossed emblem on the corner. Article 7. It wasn't just classified, it was myth. The final lever, the nuclear option. A protocol so buried even field operatives debated whether it had ever existed. A clause that meant only one thing. The mission is real, the timeline is impossible, and you are the only failsafe. She didn't panic, didn't flinch. She folded the card, set it beside her keyboard, and kept working until exactly 1,830. At 1,831, she shut down the computer. At 1,833, she dropped her empty coffee cup into the bin, aligned the blinds to half-drawn, and wiped down her desk. The janitorial checklist required these steps. Discipline doesn't break, not even when the world does. She left through the side corridor, her footsteps echoing faintly. Past the dumpsters, past the bent grass behind the fence, past the line where civilian life ended and shadow operations began again. At the edge of the flight line, the sky had begun to bruise a wash of orange and steel. The air tasted different here, dry, heavier. And then she saw it. The plane. Sleek, black, low to the tarmac like a predator ready to leap. The kind of stealth bird the Pentagon officially decommissioned years ago. The kind whose blueprints were accidentally lost in a vault fire. She hadn't seen that shape in 13 years. And it was waiting for her. Under its wing, 2 silhouettes stood, one tall, one compact, both wearing matte black flight suits. Red Falcon black. As she approached, the taller figure raised his hand not in greeting, but in signal, a sharp gesture. 4 fingers, 1 curl, a code she hadn't seen since her final op in the Caspian corridor. Valkyrie. Her call sign. It hit her like lightning to the spine. Not memory, not nostalgia, reinstatement. The shorter figure stepped forward. Karen stopped dead. Rashid? She breathed. He grinned, scarred mouth twisted by history. I was told you thought I died. I did, she said. Good, he muttered. That was the idea. He nodded toward the aircraft. Briefing inside, wheels up in 40. She followed them into Hangar 6, a place that felt more like a cathedral than a hangar. Cold concrete, curved black steel ribs, every footstep echoed like it was walking through a memory. A single table waited beneath a surgical lamp. A monitor displayed satellite footage. A compound. Remote. Barren. Low white structures, fencing with no shadows, and in the center courtyard a man, on his knees, hands bound, 2 guards nearby. But it wasn't the prisoner that chilled her. It was the object next to him. A black box, no bigger than a backpack. Her voice barely registered. That can't be. The silent figure by the monitor turned. Another face from a ghost file. Lieutenant Julia Keene. Codename, Moth. Last seen 7 years ago. Presumed Kia during a failed intercept in the Caspian. But she stood here now, very much alive, her expression unchanged. That same heavy stare that once quieted entire operations rooms. She didn't smile, didn't speak, just pointed at the box and said, "It's not a relic, it's a successor, and it's active." Karen Blake stood frozen. The black box on the screen pulsed like a heartbeat. Matte finish, compact, featureless except for the faint red light blinking in sync with a rhythm she hadn't heard in over a decade. That rhythm wasn't just timing. It was summoning. Moth turned her head slightly. "We don't know who activated it, but we know why." Karen didn't respond. Her eyes were still on the image. Her hands clenched at her sides, a subtle tension that only another Red Falcon could read. Rashid stepped forward, his voice gravel. They pulled fragments out of the Helmand Ridge crash site, stuff that shouldn't have survived, guidance units, data cores, even one of our prototype drones, your old bird, Karen. He tapped the screen. Another image appeared, a satellite photo of a downed drone, its fuselage cracked open on jagged rock. The inner wing had a faint, half-burned marking. The Falcon. Karen blinked slowly. "They reassembled it," she said flatly. "Worse," Moth cut in. "They reprogrammed it." Silence again. No one needed to say what that meant. Red Falcon had been a ghost program, designed to never officially exist. Its operators were stripped of identity, buried under clearance levels only satellite protocols could reach. The missions weren't black. They were void. And now, someone had turned the void into a weapon. "They're not reviving us," Rashid growled. "They're hijacking us." Karen exhaled through her nose, her voice low. "We're not the mission. We're the test." Moth nodded slowly. They wanted to see who would answer, who still had the instinct to come back. Karen's mind reeled. The emblem in her bag. She remembered packing Ita, did she? "I zip that bag every day," she whispered. You zipped what they gave you," Moth said gently. For the first time, Karen felt the air around her compress. She hadn't packed it, not consciously, not intentionally. That emblem had been placed as a trigger. "They used the checkpoint," she said. "To set it off. They wanted to start the clock." "And now," Rashid muttered, "we're the fuse." Moth stepped aside, lifted a hard case from beneath the table, and flipped it open. Inside, a fresh patch. Same Falcon. Same bolt. But this time, it had a crimson border stitched around the edge. Karen stared at it. Her voice was barely audible. "That means no support, no comms, no evac. Finish the mission, or don't come back." Moth nodded once. "It's not punishment, it's protocol." Karen reached for the patch, held it in her palm. It was warm. Not with power, with finality. Then Moth said the words that shifted the room. "Your remission is cleared. You've been reactivated." The air stilled. Karen didn't answer. She didn't need to. She reached into her canvas bag, the same one that had been dumped across a metal table like it belonged to a janitor, and slid the emblem into a fresh pocket. Not hiding it anymore, holstering it. She zipped it shut. And when she looked up, she wasn't Karen Blake anymore. She was Lieutenant Commander Valkyrie. Red Falcon operative, ghost asset, strategic anomaly. The kind of operator that walked into war zones where diplomacy had failed and left no trace behind except results. By the time briefing ended, she had already stripped off her base uniform. The flight suit still fit. She ran her fingers over the old wristband on her arm. the one with 3 notches carved on the inside. One for her first mission, one for the one that almost killed her, and one for the day she disappeared from every system on Earth. At 1,941 hours, the stealth jet rolled from Hangar 6. At 1,943, base-wide clearance logs updated. Karen Blake's profile was deleted. In its place, a reactivation notice for Valkyrie Red Falcon protocol reinstated. At 1,947, the jet disappeared into sky. No lights, no comms, just a thought gliding through the jet stream. Inside, she sat in silence. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because this time, she wasn't walking into someone else's operation. She was walking into hers. And whatever waited in that desert had made the mistake of thinking ghosts stayed buried. 300 hours, Helmand Province. The desert didn't breathe. Karen dropped into the sand without a sound. Her chute folded into itself like a collapsing shadow. No one saw her land. No one was meant to. She moved in quadrants, heels low, rifle up, breath split into timed intervals. Her body hadn't forgotten, not a single nerve. 8 minutes later, she reached the compound. It looked like any other cluster of low mud brick walls or facade, meant to scream civilian, but the angles were too precise, the silence too thick. Karen had walked into places like this before, places no map remembered and no reporter survived. She slipped past a cracked perimeter fence. Inside the courtyard, just as the image had shown, the box. No prisoner, no guards, just a single figure standing beside it, unmoving. Karen lifted her weapon, aimed, eyes locked, and froze. It was Moth. Julia Keene. Unarmed, calm, smiling, sadly. "I told you they reactivated Red Falcon," she said. "I didn't say who reactivated it." Karen didn't lower the rifle, but she didn't fire. "What is this?" Moth kept her hands visible. "They brought us here to see who had come, to see who still remembered. This wasn't an extraction mission, it was a mirror." Karen's voice dropped. "You're not with JSOC anymore." "No one is." A soft hiss came from the black box beside her heat vents discharging. A red light blinked once, twice. Karen stepped closer, rifle still raised. "What's in it?" "Proof," Moth answered. "Not of our missions, of what they did to us." Karen felt her mouth go dry. "You're saying they set a trap?" "No," Moth replied. "We did." Then the sky changed. A faint pulse of blue horizontal across the stars, low and steady. Transmission. Karen turned. High above, a drone formation shifted in silent arcs, not in a search pattern, but a broadcast array. The emblem inside her bag, the one they planted, had been the trigger. A beacon. And now, the message was out. Every order, every denied op, every Red Falcon operative listed as never existed. Names, dates, audio logs, all of it. Live. Karen stepped back, stunned. "You're burning everything." "No," Moth said. "We're letting the world see the ashes." In Berlin, Cairo, Tokyo terminals blinked to life. Inside NATO command centers, senior officials stopped mid-sentence as clearance walls crumbled in real time. A Falcon appeared first, then names. Some dead, some presumed dead, and one Valkyrie confirmed alive. In a bunker under Arlington, a retired general watched video footage load. A building in Syria, a voice his own giving the liquidation order. Asset Valkyrie, terminate. Date, 2011. The IED was supposed to kill her. It hadn't. She saw it too, her image entering that building, minutes before it exploded. They'd tried to erase her once before, not just career-wise, literally. Now the erasure had failed, and she wasn't hiding anymore. Not in battle, not in silence, just present as the truth. Inside the compound, the broadcast streamed. Moth tapped a console to stabilize the feed. Her face calm, Karen stood beside her, rifle lowered, every heartbeat a drum in the stillness. Moth turned. 2 minutes until it's globally mirrored, then no one can shut it down. Karen nodded. And after that? We disappear again. Not as ghosts, as consequences. A faint breeze rolled over the courtyard. Karen didn't speak. She simply sat beside the box. For the first time in years, her shoulders relaxed. Not in surrender. In relief, 3 weeks later, Falcon Ridge's West checkpoint was shut down, not upgraded, removed. The men who dumped her bag were transferred, no warning, no explanation. Internal memos called it a routine restructure. But everyone who had been there that morning knew the truth. Something had cracked open, and once it did, nothing would ever look the same again. Her desk in Building 9 remained untouched, her badge deactivated, no announcement, no ceremony. Only a single cedar token left behind in the drawer, and a faint smell of coffee-stained oatmeal. Across the world, the headlines faded, buried under noise, rebranded under new names. But inside certain rooms, the kind with lead walls and no windows, the name Red Falcon stopped being a myth. And Valkyrie stopped being a ghost. She had never asked for medals, never asked for justice. Only one thing: don't erase me. And now, she wasn't. She was remembered not loudly, but permanently. If you've ever walked away from a system that tried to erase you, if you've ever swallowed your name just to survive, then this story is yours too. Because greatness doesn't shout. It just gets up and walks quietly toward the truth.